Hello and welcome to another episode of Ball Around the Head, Eastern Conference Finals Edition. I am joined yet again by Andrew and Ben, and with all these sports on TV right now, all we focus about is basketball, the sport that matters. And there's been a bunch of good basketball recently. There's a Game 7 between Boston and Toronto. There's a Game 7 coming up with the Clippers and Nuggets. The Lakers advanced, the Heat advanced, which Andrew predicted. But we're going to go into the Eastern Conference Finals immediately. So we have the number 2 seed, the 3 seed Boston Celtics, and the number 5 seed Miami Heat. In the Eastern Conference Finals, not many would have predicted not that long ago. Actually, at all. No one would ever predict it. It was always Milwaukee, Toronto, Milwaukee, Philadelphia, maybe Boston, but no one ever thought Miami would get there. But we're here, and it's going to be a very good series. The Celtics did win the season series 2-1. The Heat won the one game in the bubble without Jimmy Butler, which is kind of notable. So we're going to go with kind of Heat fan Andrew Hall on this one first. Andrew, who do you have winning the series?
Well, I'm glad you introduced me as a Heat fan because I had the Miami Heat. I just feel like the Miami Heat, they really have good teamwork. They have really good chemistry. They have really good shooting. They have Gordon Dragic, Tyler Hero, Jimmy Butler, who isn't really the best shooter, but can shoot the ball. And I just feel like, the Heat. I just feel like the Heat would be a good matchup against the Celtics. I mean, the Celtics are definitely happy it's not the Bucks, but I feel like the Heat are just a better team around the perimeter, which is probably scarier for the Celtics, even though they do have good perimeter defense.
So how many games?
I'm going to say the Heat in 6.
Okay. Ben?
I'll never understand Andrew's brain. He shows up in a Celtics uniform and then he picks the Heat.
I'll explain that in a minute.
All right. This has the feeling of a 7-game series to me. Both teams have been playing well. I think the Celtics have been playing better than indicated by the fact that series with Toronto went 7 games. I think they just couldn't finish a few, and that's why it took so long. I went back and forth with this one, but I have the Celtics in 7. I just think they're a more balanced team offensively. They've got Tatum, Brown, and Walker, whereas the Heat have to get scoring from Jimmy Butler. And, Hero's actually been pretty consistent for a rookie, but I don't think he's on the level of like a Jaylen Brown or a Kemba Walker in terms of consistent scoring. Even
Marcus Smart. I mean, because I feel like Kemba Walker hasn't even shown up. They didn't really need Kemba Walker in games 7 or 6 against the Raptors, and I think Marcus Smart has taken a huge step because he's kind of a defensive-minded player, but he's been balling out offensively as well.
Yeah.
Daniel? Oh, never mind.
Oh, I was just going to say one more thing. That's a good transition. Another reason I think the Celtics have an edge is that they have Smart, which can lock up Jimmy Butler. He always gets to the best player, but in this case, it's actually a decent size matchup. So I think he can do a lot against Butler.
Who do you have, Daniel?
Were you going to say something, Andrew?
Well, I was going to mention why I was wearing this Boston jersey. This is not a Boston jersey. This is an Isaiah Thomas jersey. And I was going to say, real quick, got to show the back. The reason the Heat will take this is because the Celtics do not have Isaiah Thomas. He's the hero of the franchise that they've needed since he left. Did he leave in 2016? Because he was 17. Doesn't even matter. Just respect Isaiah Thomas, so I had to bring it out.
So I looked at this series as a Celtics fan and as someone who's doing a podcast, and I kind of came up with the same solution. I looked at the stats. I'm not doing this from the heart. I think Boston's going to have a fairly easy series with this, in my opinion. I don't think the Heat are on the Celtics level. I don't know which one of you mentioned it, but the Celtics have 4, with Gordon Hayward most likely coming back this series, they have 4 20-point-per-game scores, and Smart is very unpredictable on any given night. The Heat have Jimmy Butler, who really isn't a number 1 offensive threat. He's a great leader. He's one of the best probably. But Goran Dragic hit or miss on nights, and I'll get to the stats a little bit later. Bam Adebayo is a really good defender, really good rebounder who might actually destroy the Celtics in rebounds this series. But I won't be worried about Bam Adebayo shooting against us. We'll leave him open. So I'm going to have Boston in 6 because I think Miami is a very good team. They proved it by beating the number 1 seed in all of basketball. And I feel like they're going to get out a couple wins. But I feel like this is the year Brad Stevens finally gets to the NBA Finals. A lot of them had them out first round. A lot of them had them out second round. And now they're here in the Eastern Conference Finals. I think they take care of business. And they go to the first finals since 2010, which would be 10 years ago not the month because we're in September. So as I say, the Celtics, in my opinion, will win. If you were to pick the Celtics, what can the Heat do to change your mind to make them advance to the NBA Finals? Ben?
I think they're going to need a lot of penetration from Butler and Dragic, particularly. Basically, Butler just needs to take over games. Like, the Heat are not as deep as the Celtics, and I think Butler's best when he's going to the basket. And then he can kick out to open shooters like Hero. And so I think that's basically what they're going to have to do.
I have to agree. Driving to the basket, because I think the Heat are gonna dominate the paint, especially with Bam Adebayo, Jimmy Butler again penetrating to the basket, maybe kicking it out to Hero or Dragic. Andre Iguodala even could drive to the basket, but he's kind of older now, and they play him when Hero kind of fumbles the ball in Game 4 against the Bucks. But yeah, I have to agree. The Miami Heat penetrating to the basket and really trying to take advantage of maybe their inside matchups, because I don't think they win against in the perimeter. The Celtics have really good perimeter defense. I mean, Jaylen Brown, Marcus Smart, Jason Tatum actually plays a lot of defense inside, but obviously you can kind of put him wherever you want. And I don't really think Kemba Walker's that good on defense, so I'm not really going to mention him. But I think driving to the paint is going to have to be the Heat's advantage, and trying to just mid-range and penetrate.
I'm really glad that both of you guys have mentioned Marcus Smart's defense, because all of my life I've been telling my friends that Marcus Smart is one of the best defenders in the NBA, and everyone made fun of me. And then have had so many people in the past couple of days say, oh my God, Marcus Smart is literally the best on-ball defender. And it's true, he is. Sometimes he doesn't play enough minutes to get Defensive Player of the Year conversation. He comes off the bench when Hayward's healthy. But he is a really good defender. Sometimes he flops too much, but also he makes the right play 98% of the time. That block on Powell was absolutely incredible. That was
saved the game.
Amazing. Before I go on to my thing, Elijah said that he thinks the Celtics will win in 5, assuming Gordon Hayward comes back. The Celtics have said they don't know when Hayward's coming back, but he will for sure come back this series. So I'm going to guess game 2 or 3 is when he'd be coming back. That's my guess. But yeah, you're kind of on the same page. I almost wanted to say Celtics in 5, but I think the Heat will gut out at least 2 wins. So. If, by the way, on that topic, if anybody has any comments, questions, concerns, we will be more than happy to answer them as soon as we possibly can. But back to my answer, I think watching that last series, if the Heat want to advance to the NBA Finals, and Ben pointed this stat out to me, it'd be the first 5th seed to ever do that. I never knew that. It's kind of cool. They need to make threes. And when I say that, and I'm going to get to that later, but Toronto could have easily beat Boston, and they didn't, because they missed way too many open threes. Siakam was a shell of himself. He was a horrible player that series. He's a good player overall, but who knows? Maybe there's something going on in his life that always, like Paul George said, he was battling stuff when he started struggling. There's just a bunch of things you never know, but he wasn't good. Marc Gasol didn't make a 3 until Game 6. And like Lowry didn't shoot so well. Van Vliet didn't shoot so well. So Miami needs to hit open threes. Boston, as much as I love them, they give up a lot of open threes on defense, and they have Tyler Hero who can make them pay, Duncan Robinson who can make them pay, Jay Crowder's been hitting it nicely. So I think they need to hit the three-pointer well. And on the defensive side, I liked what Toronto did. Not really, because I kind of like offensive basketball, and this was just pure defense. But they should try the box and one on Kemba, because that absolutely destroyed Kemba last series. Kemba had no idea how to get out of it. He had 5 points in Game 6 in a huge game, which is unacceptable for a $30 million point guard. And what they did during the regular season, and most teams do to Boston, the zone defense is Boston's kryptonite. If they hit their threes, then people go out of the zone, but most of the time they don't hit the threes, and then the zone just the 13-0 run turns into a 20-0 run for the other team. So Miami needs to be sharp on the defensive end, and they need to hit their open threes, or Boston's just going to take over. So, but I think it's very light. I think there's a really good chance Miami does advance. As much as I said I want the Celtics to advance, and I think they will, there's a good chance Miami does advance too. They're a really good team. Jimmy Butler doesn't care about the expectations. He's just going out there fighting every night. So is the whole team. Yeah.
I think a box and one, if Tatum's on the floor, that's actually kind of disrespectful, and I don't think that would be the best plan.
Toronto did it in game whatever, and Tatum missed, luckily. But, I mean, Game 7, Tatum hit everything, and that's why they lost. But you're right. You're right.
Well, actually, I kind of going on what Ben said, I remember Game 3 when Kemba had like 30 or 29, actually. 29, and they still lost. I feel like they really don't need to play defense on Kemba, and they should focus playing defense on Tatum because, again, in Game 3, Tatum had 15 points. I don't know if I wasn't really, I really wish I would have known we were going to talk about this or I would have paid more attention, but about the defense on the Raptors. But Jason Tatum had like 15 points in Game 3, and Kemba had 29, and they still lost. So I have to agree with Ben. Like trying to limit Kemba is probably a good option, but trying to just shut down Tatum is probably the only way to really win against the Celtics.
Yeah, and actually, I'm really glad you just mentioned Jason Tatum. So, our next topic, in the Eastern Conference Finals, who do you guys believe is the best player in this series right now? Andrew, who do you got?
I have Jason Tatum. Jason Tatum he's scoring just willy-nilly, kind of putting his team on his back alongside Jaylen Brown, but maybe Marcus Smart. But I think Jason Tatum is just defensive side and really kind of pick up the pace for the Celtics. Jason Tatum is definitely the best player in that series, without a doubt. I mean, I would consider thinking of the Heat, Jimmy Butler, obviously, but Jimmy Butler, I don't know. I just feel like he's not kind of that carry player on a championship team. It's kind of disrespectful to say, but I just think Jason Tatum took that leap this year, and he's going to just keep improving, and he's probably going to be the best player in that series.
Wow, all right. I actually disagree with you somewhat strongly on this one.
Okay.
I think it's Jimmy Butler. I mean, if you look at how he shut down Giannis last series, like his defense is not even close to Tatum's, honestly. And I mean, Tatum, I'd put number 2 for sure. Well, that's fair enough. But if you look at the Heat without Jimmy Butler or the Celtics without Jason Tatum, the Heat wouldn't be going anywhere, honestly. The Heat would probably be a 7 or 8 seed without Jimmy Butler, which is saying a lot in the East. Like, they have no other stars.
Mm-hmm.
You could consider Adebayo maybe a borderline star, but other than that, they just have really good role players. So I think the Heat is like, Butler's like one of the only reasons the Heat are in the position they're in.
I would argue the only reason, actually. So yeah, I kind of like that idea of Jimmy Butler, but I think it's still Jason Tatum. Daniel?
I honestly expected this conversation to go flipped, as in Andrew would say Jimmy Butler and Ben would say Jason Tatum. So I actually had stats prepared for an argument about this. I have Jason Tatum, and as much as Jimmy Butler had, and as you said, the Heat were a near 500, near playoff team last year without Jimmy Butler. They had Jimmy Butler, and then they're in the Eastern Conference Finals. And also, Jimmy Butler was a couple bounces away from being in the Eastern Conference Finals 2 straight years.
Mm-hmm.
I have Tatum because I agree Jimmy Butler is not, I don't know, way better than Tatum on defense, but Tatum can hold his own on defense. He can, and he's one of the most underrated defensive players out there. He had a couple good blocks in Game 7 and Game 6 against Toronto. But I'm going to go with this real quick. Jason Tatum in the playoffs is averaging 25 points per game. He's actually averaging a double-double with 10 rebounds. He has 4.3 assists, and recently his assists have gone up. And everyone who has watched Jason Tatum throughout his career has said if he wants to be a star, he needs to pass the ball. And he's starting to pass the ball. He was near triple-double in Game 6. He was 3 assists shy of a triple-double in Game 7. He's starting to figure out where the people are open. He's making really good reads. You just watch the broadcast. The broadcasters just drool over how good of reads he makes. He also has 1.2 blocks. Him and Butler's field goal percentages aren't spectacular. I mean, they never really were great shooters, efficient shooters.
They're high-volume shooters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I just feel like Tatum is the best player in this series right now. Jimmy Butler, I honestly had as a close second. I was really close, actually, to picking Jimmy Butler, as much as you guys may not agree with, believe me. But I actually really was. But I think just Jason Tatum this is the series for Tatum to make his superstar claim that he's one of the best. This is what everyone's saying. This is the year for Jimmy Butler to get respect, or Tatum to start getting that superstar mentality. Elijah just commented, "Don't sleep on Kemba." Kemba is capable. I don't know if he's going to be the best player in this series, but he's very capable of putting up a solid 20 points and 7 assists, which is kind of what the Celtics are asking out of him, not really to be a 40-point per game scorer. But, I'm going to get to Kemba, yet again, another great transition on this next topic. For this next topic, we're going to discuss who is the X factor for each of these teams. I'm going to go first on this one since I'm going to transition into this. I have technically I'm going to keep it short. For both teams, it's their point guards. I got Kemba Walker and Goran Dragic. I'm going to go to Goran Dragic first. Goran, hear me out.
I'm just saying that's what I have, but okay.
No. Goran Dragic needs to be a third scorer, or technically a second scorer for them if they have any chance. Tyler Hero will make his threes. He will. He will not be horrible. And neither will Duncan Robinson. He'll hit a couple threes. But they need Goran Dragic to create a shot. And I saw when he gets fouled, he's not really that efficient at making his free throws, which that needs to go as well. Jason Tatum's the exact same way. Boston's a tough team, so they will foul. They do foul a lot. Daniel Tice fouls a lot. He fouled out in Game 7. But for Kemba Walker, I've always told my family members that Kemba Walker needs to have – I'm serious. Every single game they lose, Kemba needs to have like a 20-point game for them to win. And then he goes out and has a 5-point game, they lose. He has a 10-point game, they lose. He puts up a 16-point game in Game 7, they win. They need him to contribute, as I just mentioned to Eli's comment, not in the way he did in Charlotte, although he's made some really clutch plays this series. That pass to Grant Williams in Game 7, who knows how he fed that to Grant Williams, which fouled out Kyle Lowry, which was huge.
Yeah.
But yeah, Kemba was not really good at three-point shooting. He was 27% in the last series and only 28% in the playoffs, which is horrible. His field goal percentage is 45 in the playoffs, 42 in the last series. His turnovers in last series, although it was Toronto's great defense, he had 2 turnovers a game, which isn't that bad, but he could improve. So I think the point guard battle is kind of what will determine most of the series, to be honest with you. What do you guys got?
Real quick, Ben, I kind of want to hop on this because I don't know if it's the jersey or what, because Daniel and I have just been agreeing on everything today. I have exactly Goran Dragic and Kemba Walker also. Sorry. For the Celtics, I say I would have Kemba, but he didn't show up half the series, and the Celtics still won. I had Kemba, and I actually changed it to Marcus Smart. So I'll talk about Marcus Smart real quick. Marcus Smart, he has really stepped up as kind of that third star for the Celtics, especially when Kemba Walker has been trolling on offense. Marcus Smart, I mean, he's been averaging, or in the beginning of the series, 21, 19. They lost when he only had less than 15 points. Both the games they lost. I think Marcus Smart, especially on the defensive end, is going to be that X factor for the Celtics on the perimeter. Like you said earlier, guarding Jimmy Butler. I even think that Marcus Smart would be able to switch on Gordon Dragic if he's hot, be able to shut down Tyler Hero if he's shooting well, even though Tyler Hero plays a lot of off-ball kind of movement, kind of like Steph Curry. But I think for the Celtics, Marcus Smart, and I think sorry, I thought I had Kemba, but I forgot to change it. And talking about Gordon Dragic real quick on the Heat, I think Gordon Dragic, just like you mentioned, he has to create a shot and he has to shoot well because Hero he hasn't not scored 10 points in the playoffs. He actually at least in the second round, he makes at least 2 threes a game. So I feel like he'll do fine. I think Gordon Dragic is going to just have to keep performing. He hasn't not performed yet, I feel like. So I think if he just keeps on the level he's going, and if not even gets greater, the Heat will have a much easier time.
Just a quick note on that Marcus Smart thing that you and Ben have kind of covered. If I know Brad Stevens as well as I do, I wouldn't be surprised if Marcus Smart really doesn't guard Jimmy Butler this series. I think he'll put him on a Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson kind of player. As Andrew said, he's kind of like the Curry kind of player, get off the screen role. And I feel like he'll put Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown on Jimmy Butler, kind of like Siakam. He kind of had Smart on Van Vliet and Lowry instead of like Siakam, and they had Jaylen Brown on Siakam because Jaylen Brown's a very not great defender, but he's actually pretty solid. But yeah, Ben, what do you got?
Not sure I agree with that, but you watch more Celtics than I do because I also have Marcus Smart for the reason that I think he's going to have to shut down Jimmy Butler on the defensive end, and then on the offensive end, he's been really streaky, and he's been the catalyst for them to get runs going when they're down or when they need to extend a lead. He's been able to string together a lot of 3-pointers in a row, and so I think on both ends of the floor, he's going to be the biggest factor for them. And for the Heat, this player is a bit of a sleeper pick. He's definitely not the most important player in this series, but I think he'll have a bigger impact than might be expected, and that's the former Celtic Kelly Olynyk.
That's my boy.
Kelly Olynyk, that's a good choice.
He hasn't scored a lot, but just like I mentioned with Marcus Smart, multiple times throughout these playoffs that I've watched, he's hit a couple of threes in a row to spark a run, cause the other coach to call a timeout. And I think that one of those runs like that could be a difference for in a couple games, perhaps. And also just his presence as a big man being able to hit the three. I know that's not too uncommon nowadays, but I'll get to this later. But I think the bench units are going to be very important in this series.
Yeah,
nice.
I think that's a good argument by both of you guys. You guys made some pretty good points right there. Again, got to put this out there. If anybody has a comment, question, concern, please comment, and we'll get to them as soon as we can. So our next topic we're going to discuss is, in this series, which stat do you think will determine the outcome?
Okay, so I guess it's not as later as I thought because I'm going with bench points. We've talked about, I still think Butler needs to dominate. I still think the Celtics starters are more consistent offensively, but I think the series is ultimately going to come down to when the bench units are on the floor, who has the upper hand. Both of these teams, I think, are deep in terms of their benches. You've got Wanamaker for the Celtics. Like you said, a lot of people don't like him, but I think he's actually a pretty important piece for them. You got Duncan Robinson. Wait, he comes off the bench, right?
Duncan Robinson starts sometimes. I think he started in the playoffs, but he usually comes off the bench.
Okay, well, like I mentioned Olynyk before too. So yeah, that's it.
I actually have to disagree because I feel like the Celtics. I do disagree that the bench is going to make a huge impact on the team. But I have to disagree when you said the Celtics have depth because I think the Celtics bench is horrible. I don't feel like they have any backup center. I don't really feel like they have another. I don't want to say point guard because isn't Marcus Smart a point guard?
If Gordon Hayward back, yeah, Smart would probably come and man the second unit.
Oh yeah, Gordon Hayward's coming back. Oh yeah, okay. But I really don't think the Celtics have that good of a bench. I think the Heat have a lot more depth and a lot more role players on their team than the Celtics do. But what I thought for the statistics prediction is 3-point percentage because both or not both these teams, if the Celtic or the Heat, they shot their shooting against the Bucks is the reason they won. I don't think you can deny that. I mean, they haven't shot below 35% against the Bucks, or in Game 2 or in Series 2 they didn't shoot below 35%. And the Celtics, when they don't shoot well, they lose because in Game 4 they shot 20%. They got I wouldn't say demolished, but then they lose by like 10. Game 3 they shot 32.5%. Game 7 though they shot 24%, and they still won. But I think a lot later in the series is when people shoot a lot less threes for some reason, which I never understood. It's probably a easier shot to hit in the mid range than the three. But I think 3-point percentage is going to have to determine the series, and just being able to hit your shots at the perimeter. That's so important in today's NBA.
So a quick little note on that claim that the Celtics big man depth isn't that good. I strongly disagree with that one. I think they have two really good, capable centers off the bench, depending on the matchup.
Don't say Enes Kanter.
Kanter did really good against Embiid. The Raptor series is not meant for Kanter, so they brought Robert Williams off the bench, and he was probably the best bench player for the Celtics last round. Brad Wanamaker, as Ben mentioned, Celtics fans hate him, but he did his job. He had that one game where he actually made a couple threes, and the Celtics demolished the Raptors. But he does his role. He doesn't try to do too much. He passes the ball a lot. He doesn't try to take over the game. And my thing with the benches is depth only means so much when you get later on in the playoffs, because everyone knows the rotations shorten up. I remember that one game, the Raptors, I think it was game 4 or something, the Raptors had their starters out for the entire second half, no rest. And it's like it's crazy. It's crazy how they did that. Admiral Apaka, if you would explain why we are wrong, I would be more than willing to discuss that. But if we're to go back to stat determining, I'm going to agree with Andrew, 3-point percentage. You see it everywhere. They say it on broadcasts all the time. It's a make or miss league. It's a make or miss league. You saw.
Is that what that means? I'm always like, what do you mean it's a make or miss league? Okay, we'll get on that later. That's for a different day.
If you don't make 3-pointers, you're not going to win. That's what NBA is involved. Like you guys said, all you guys know, the big men have transformed into 3-point shooters, or they're gone. Like all these good big men that were solid back in the day, they're just gone because they didn't want to shoot threes. And the ones that are still in the league that don't shoot threes, they don't play as much in the playoffs because they can't shoot threes. So as Andrew mentioned, when the Celtics miss, and they mentioned this on TNT every single game, when the Celtics miss a lot of threes, they lost. When the Raptors miss a lot of threes, they lost. It's as easy as that. Whoever, like I mentioned earlier, the Heat already get a lot of open shots. If they miss them, Boston's going to go on fast break and they're going to score because they're one of the good fast break teams. We have a bunch of comments real quick. Anthony says depth doesn't matter if you don't play them, which is very true. And kind of what I meant to say in a way of in the playoffs, like you can have these depth guys, and sometimes they bring those guys who were like a Matt Thomas last series who can give you a quick 3-pointer off the bench and give you a spark. For the most part, though, a lot of teams have like an 8-man rotation or 7-man rotation. It's not; they don't really go deeper than that.
The Heat have 8-man rotation.
So you're right.
Those 3 guys still matter, though. Those 3 guys.
But I'm saying, like, if you have a good 6 through 12, it really doesn't matter if both teams have the good 6 through 8, if that makes sense. So I think that's kind of where he's getting. But yeah, so I think me and Andrew both agree that 3-point percentage will determine the series, and Ben thinks that bench points, which I do not disagree with at all. I think we're all right on this one. So we're kind of done with the Eastern Conference Finals. We're to move on to NBA quote unquote gossip. So I think it was yesterday, Chris Haynes of Yahoo Sports reported that Giannis met with the Bucks ownership and they discussed the future. No one knows when this occurred, if it happened before or after the meeting, but Giannis unfollowed all of his Bucks teammates and a bunch of other people on Instagram except for 9 people. So, in a day where social media is the biggest thing in the world, everyone's freaking out. Oh my God, Giannis is gone. He asked for a trade. He told the front office he hates them. I'm gone. And maybe it happened. Who knows? Hi, Asher. But everyone's asking now, what's next for Giannis? Andrew, what do you got?
Oh, real quick, I'm glad that you mentioned the Instagram thing where he unfollowed everybody. I thought I saw somewhere that Giannis does this every year where he unfollows or kind of blocks out social media at the end of the season and really focuses on grinding and getting better as a player. And it's not weird that he did that because if you look, he only follows his family, I'm pretty sure, which is respectable. Like I follow my family on Instagram, so I don't think it's that big of a deal that he unfollowed all his teammates. It's maybe it would be concerning, but I think I don't think it's going to really – it doesn't mean anything. As far as Giannis's future, I think he will actually stay in Miami next year. And I feel like what they had the meeting was about was really discussing if they can try and get another big agent or a big player in Miami. And if not, then they would have to trade him. And I feel like, we'll talk about big stars going to Miami. I would real quick.
I think you mean Milwaukee.
I think you mean Milwaukee.
Oh yeah. They start with M. You know what I mean?
You're getting a little too ahead of yourself right now. Hold up.
Yeah, wait. They start with an M. That was one thing that I kind of thought to myself was Giannis going to Miami. I might as well just go straight to that because I brain scrambled, or whatever you want to call it. Giannis to Miami next year is not going to happen, I don't think. Giannis to Miami in 2021 free agency, it could definitely happen because of the Miami has cap space. They don't have a lot of players on their contract, which is why I don't think next year Giannis will go there. So I feel like in 2021, that's when he would go there. But as far as next year, I think he'll stay with the Milwaukee and just try and get another star there and make another run. I've heard a lot of Chris Paul talk, a lot of Donovan Mitchell, even Black Panther, Rip Chadwick Boseman, Victor Oladipo. I've heard that too. So I think
before you go real quick, Anthony has a comment and a question actually, so we're going to get to that real quick. Anthony said, if the Heat and Celtics happen to win this year's championship, what is your guys' takes on small ball and big men in the NBA for the future? Ben, what do you have?
Honestly, I'm not really sure what you mean by this question because the Heat and the Celtics, to me, when I look at them, they're kind of typical in terms of their makeup for today's NBA. Like they're not like the Rockets or anything where they have 5 smalls on the floor. They usually play one big at a time, which I think most teams in the league do. But that being said, playing one big at a time is something that would have been considered small ball only a few years ago. So I really think if anybody but the Lakers, I guess you could say, because they're a much bigger team, win the championship, you could say that the future is definitely in small ball. I, for one, believe that regardless of what happens. I am in full support of the Rockets' analytical methods in deciding how to play. I mean, the 3-point percentage, it's just a higher percentage shot than a mid-range shot. And with small guys, that's what they do. They can hit threes or they can drive to the basket. So it just makes sense for me, and I agree that that's the future of the league.
Yeah, on that, I think that it doesn't really matter who wins this year's championship. I think the Warriors set that standard when they won the championship with Draymond Green and Andre Iguodala, Kevin Durant, Klay Thompson, and Steph Curry, known as the Hampton Five. For those who don't know what that means, that's the team that recruited Kevin Durant when he signed with the Warriors. I think that was the momentum that kind of switched everyone to go, wait, maybe we should start putting these power forwards at big men at the end of the games, and so we can get more shooting on the court for people like LeBron, for people like Giannis, and I think the big men are very close to being extinct. Those kind of I mentioned earlier, the ones that don't shoot threes. I think
typical big men. Yeah.
Yeah, I think those days are done. Like the Hakeem Olajuwons, all of that. I think those are just done.
The CJs. Like the dominant in the paint, just not as much on the perimeter.
I have a question for both of you, real quick. How tall do you think Daniel Tice is?
6'10".
Ben?
6'9".
Daniel Tice is 6'8", and he's not even the tallest guy on the Celtics on the starting five, and he's their center.
Is Jason Tatum taller?
Yeah.
Okay.
So without people realizing it, the Celtics are kind of doing what the Rockets are doing, but Tice is like built different. If that, you know what I mean? Like,
he's really lanky. He's he's pretty lanky.
But they're kind of doing what the Rockets did this year, really, with the 6'8" center, and he kind of got schooled by Embiid and stuff. But I feel like,
I mean, that's different than a 6'4" center.
True, but I feel like pretty soon, like the Embiids, they're almost unplayable in the playoffs. Kind of like this year, Embiid was very unplayable in like the second half. He put up horrible numbers in the second half. He got all he wanted in the first, but when the game gets tight, big men are kind of out of it. Like Jokic adapted. Jokic made some huge shots today. He passes the ball better than any big man I've ever seen, and I don't think it's really a debate. But before I keep on going on this, Andrew, what?
I'm just getting flattered in the comments.
What do you have on this?
I have to kind of agree with what Ben was saying. I actually forgot what Ben was saying, but I agreed with it. Like I think
going off the rails.
Yeah, like the Lakers kind of are the only team in the playoffs right now that really have more than one big man at a time. But that's because Anthony Davis is a forward now, isn't he? With LeBron James, so I think that's kind of like
he wants to be a forward.
Yeah, he wants to be. He's definitely a better center, but I think he's doing his best. You know what I mean? I feel like small ball doesn't work unless you're going against other small ball teams, and because just like we saw with the Rockets, like if you just have a size advantage, Anthony Davis, JaVale McGee really didn't do that good. Neither did Dwight Howard, which was kind of interesting. But I see the future, kind of what Ben was saying, where you have one big man and the rest are small ball, and the big man can shoot a three, kind of like Kristaps Porzingis. He's developed into a 3-point threat on the Mavericks. Joel Embiid, you mentioned that he's kind of going extinct, but I think that he's transitioning better than the standard Hakeem Olajuwon big man. He can shoot decently, so I don't know. I think the future of the league is 4 small and then 1 big that can shoot a 3 if they need to. You know what I mean?
All right. Yeah. So we're gonna move on with the topic. We're gonna try to get this along quickly.
And shout out to League of Skins Varus, by the way, in the chat. My boy Angelo.
What do you got?
So if I were to put on my tinfoil hat right now, I'd say that the order of events would be that Giannis said he didn't want to ask for a trade first.
Okay, I think that's never mind. Sorry.
Well, because like Daniel said, we don't know when that meeting happened. So I'd say that he's committed to the Bucks basically first. Then he had this meeting, and the Bucks kind of expressed to him that they might be looking for trade packages. That'd be my guess. And then he unfollowed everyone and sort of moved on. I don't know how. I've never heard what Andrew said about him doing this every year. That might very well be true. So I don't know about that.
I saw that in like a YouTube comment. So, it's that, someone just probably typed that, but yeah.
But yeah, so if I were to guess, I'd say that it's the Bucks looking to deal Giannis more than Giannis looking to leave the Bucks right now. And I don't know if that'll happen in the offseason before the trade deadline, or if maybe he won't be traded at all. And I honestly don't know where he'd go, because I can't think of, out of the teams that I've heard rumors from, I can't think of a package that the Bucks would love. I mean, maybe the Thunder with CP3 and a bunch of picks. That's probably the best I can think of. But I can't see the Warriors getting him, honestly. So I don't know.
Yeah, I kind of think the meeting went because the media puts everything out of proportion. I feel like this meeting was more kind of what Ben said. Hey, I kind of want to start a player. Eric Bledsoe is not cutting it. Eric Bledsoe's horrible.
Yeah, I can't believe they signed. Sorry, Daniel, to interrupt, but remember when it was Eric Bledsoe or Malcolm Brogdon, and they chose Eric Bledsoe? Like, huh?
Yeah.
But anyway, sorry.
Everyone's making fun of him for that, but I like your idea, and a lot of people have suggested it of Chris Paul. I feel like Chris Paul's almost a perfect player to pair alongside Giannis to mentor him a little bit instead of him always going to the playoffs and choking every single year. Kind of have some, although Chris Paul knows a lot about choking in the playoffs, but I meant like that veteran guy to in his ear. You know what I'm saying? So he doesn't get too full of himself. So I think he stays. I feel like there's no way he leaves in free agency. He's admitted that I don't want to go anywhere. I want to finish my career here. He doesn't like super teams. He doesn't like the idea of that. Kind of like Damian Lillard, who everyone thought he was going to be traded, and then he just stayed in Portland because he doesn't want to go to a super team. And there are very few people like that nowadays, but I truly believe Giannis when he says that. So I think Giannis is staying. So Anthony brought up small ball earlier. And the Rockets just recently got out to the Lakers in 5 games. And they won game 1, and everyone's like, oh, my gosh, no way. And then they were close game 2. It's like, all right, this is a good series. Game 3, close. All right, the Lakers are advantage. And then the next game were just pure Lakers dominance. So Mike D'Antoni today was reportedly gone. He said, I don't want to coach the Rockets next year, so he's out of there. So are you guys losing faith in the Rockets small ball?
I'll just say yes, but Ben, do you want to talk about it? Yeah.
I don't think I'm not losing faith in them at all, really. I think the problem is more with Harden and Russ, honestly. Harden's been choking in the playoffs a lot, actually, recently, like the past few years. And I honestly don't think Russ is a very good fit with the Rockets ever since they moved Capella. Because when he was at his best, when he had those MVP seasons in Oklahoma City, one of the reasons he was so good is that he had somebody like Adams where he could run a pick and roll with. Because Russ in a pick and roll, that's where he's at his best to me. And so I don't think right now he's a part of that philosophy because he can't shoot the 3 very well. So I think that's their biggest problem is just with their stars not being well matched, not the small ball necessarily.
I kind of have to disagree. Like the Rockets' playoff record dating back to 2014 has just been total failure. Like they went against the Warriors, just a better small ball. Where's my fingers? Small ball team. I think the Rockets' small ball has just kind of gone down the drain, and they definitely need to blow up. I've always said James Harden won't win on the Rockets. I'm just a beard hater, I guess, but I think they should blow up the Rockets and just try and get some value. Maybe not next year because they just got Russell Westbrook. I would give it a year or 2 more. I'd say 2022 max. I don't know when James Harden's contract is over or whatever, but I think that they should try and get some value out of Harden and Westbrook before they realize it's too late and they're just left in a perpetual state of drought with the Rockets. You know what I mean? And small ball, just we saw with the Lakers, like if you go against a team with more than 2 big men or even 2 big men, it's just over. I think if the Rockets didn't go against the Lakers in the playoffs, and maybe they went against the Clippers or they went against even Portland, they probably would have won. But I just feel like it was a really unfortunate year that they went against the Lakers. And, the Lakers are winning in foul, so I don't really understand, small ball. But, yeah, I don't think small ball is the best in the Rockets.
I like your argument right now, and I kind of like what Admiral Apalka said. I feel like this was a fit that they really tried hard with, and it just didn't work, didn't cut out. that they didn't do good in the playoffs. Westbrook needs the ball. He does, and it just doesn't work. So I think I'm with Andrew. I think they should blow this up. I feel like they tried for many years. They keep on coming up short. It's just not happening. The D'Antoni, I think, kind of admitted it where he just stepped out. So I feel like they just need to blow this up. I don't think they will because it sounds like they want to run this squad back, maybe add a couple people. But I feel like it's time. Daryl Morey's into the analytics, and who knows, the ownership could fire him because he's just not doing anything. But yeah, I think Westbrook is just an odd man out. I don't feel like this is the team for him. I feel like they should explore maybe getting a small forward, power forward, big man kind of thing that could shoot, spread the floor, make their own shots. And Westbrook just can't shoot, and Harden needs the ball, and Westbrook needs the ball. And we said this at the beginning of the year, and no one thought it'd work. And in the end, the Lakers just took advantage of it, let Westbrook shoot, and the Lakers absolutely destroyed them. So we're going next to the team that the Rockets beat in the first round. Why do you guys believe the Thunder parted ways with Billy Donovan?
I don't really know about this, to be honest. Like, I am not educated with the coaching. So, Ben, do you want to take this?
Sure. So one thing we have to remember here is the reason that Donovan came to the Thunder in 2015 was primarily because Durant/Westbrook had a good relationship with them, and the Thunder wanted to bring in someone that Durant approved of to perhaps entice him to stay. And then 1 year later, Durant was gone. And so this has sort of been like Donovan's been making it work, but it wasn't really the bargain he signed up for. So to me, this signals that CP3, they're probably looking to trade him and go through a full rebuild. Because even though this team's had success, and I don't necessarily like the reality of this, then even though I don't necessarily like them moving on from him, he might not have wanted to be in this situation in the first place. So that's my guess, is that they both kind of want to start over, and Donovan doesn't really want to be there for a rebuild.
So I kind of am just with you on that. I feel like also he never made it out of the first round with the Thunder in the past 3 years, which I think played a lot. And I think they said that the Thunder are ready to embrace the youth movement, and he doesn't really want to be around for that. So I think that they are going to blow it out, but it really sounds like they will. I think they're going to trade Chris Paul. I feel like Daniel Gallinari is leaving in free agency. Who knows if they could trade Steven Adams? They probably will, because a lot of teams will probably want to get Steven Adams. So I think this is I wouldn't be surprised if they got one of those assistant coach candidates, like kind of try to go through a rebuild through Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Lou Dort, those kind of people. So I think that's why they fired him, honestly. So in a theoretical, since the majority of us had the Celtics moving on, and the Lakers are the favorites to win the championship, in a theoretical Celtics-Lakers NBA Finals, who do you guys got?
Like, Ben, do you want to start? You can go first.
Lakers in. No, I'm just kidding. Lakers in 5. I have the Lakers in 5 because to me in these playoffs, the Celtics have looked good, but the Lakers are just looking dominant right now, and they've won every series up to this point in 5 games. So, why not win the finals in 5 games? There's not really a special recipe in my mind about why they're better. They're just Davis can dominate like he has other teams, and James always shows up in the finals, and they just look like a better team to me.
Well, you said Lakers in 5, but Daniel, can you put the names down? Just asking for a friend. You know what I mean? Yeah, what does this say? Oh, yeah. Lakers in 4! It's that easy. I just think the Lakers versus Celtics, that'd be really interesting because that'd be a 10-year throwback. I mean, 2010 is when the Lakers just had to give the Celtics a reality check in Game 7. But I would say the Lakers will win because I think Anthony Davis and LeBron are just walking mismatches against maybe not Jason Tatum, but I don't really know on the Celtics who would guard Anthony Davis, which seems like every single time we talk about the Lakers matchups, it's like, who's going to guard Anthony Davis? And the Lakers just keep winning. So I think the Lakers versus the Celtics, yeah, obviously the Lakers win in foul.
You really think the Lakers will sweep the Celtics? Really, like deep down, you really think
What's my name? What's my name? You can put my name on again. Did you forget? Lakers in foul.
Anyways, I'm so I mean, you guys for most of our streams have shown a lot of bias towards the Lakers. So I'm gonna show a lot of bias towards the Celtics right here. I'm gonna have the Celtics in 6. And I want it to be remembered that when the Lakers played Boston in Boston, Boston beat the holy hell out of them. Like
But
they
they
got
let 'em.
absolutely destroyed from start to finish. And when Boston played LA in LA, couple questionable referee calls later, the Lakers barely snuck out with the win. I feel like AD
A win?
has the advantage, but I'm not really too worried about Anthony Davis, to be honest with you. It's a bold take, but really not. And LeBron James, he's really capable. I mean, I was one of them who's like, maybe he's slowing down a little bit, but he's LeBron James. He does what he wants, when he wants, how he wants. He makes threes now, which makes him more deadly.
Oh yeah, he makes threes. Yes, last game I was going crazy. He would just pull up randomly. I was watching with a very good close friend of ours, who you might see on next podcast for anybody wondering. But yeah, you guys are confused. But I'm writing the questions for next one. So I was going crazy when LeBron James was shooting the ball, because you know it's over when LeBron is shooting threes walking up from half court. So I think the Lakers just win in foul. Ain't no mo faux show.
I don't know if it's in 4, but I think if they do face off, it's going to be a pretty good series, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
So we're to end this stream on the biggest topic in the NBA, guys, right now. Game 7 of the Clippers and Nuggets. The Clippers have never made it to the conference finals. They were up 3-1. Everyone assumed they were going to make it to the conference finals. And the Nuggets have won 2 straight games, and there's a Game 7 happening. And Clipper fans are having PTSD to 2015 when they blew a 3-1 lead to the Rockets. So who do you guys have winning Game 7? Andrew, you go first.
As a Lakers fan, I really wanted the Nuggets to win Game 7, but I had a good talk with my history teacher today. Shout out to Mr. Coffee, and he told me that as a Lakers fan, you want the Clippers to make it to the conference finals to prove that we're the better LA team. So I not only have the Clippers winning in Game 7, but I also want them to win in Game 7 because I want to prove to the entire world or the entire NBA community or whoever cares about LA versus LA that the Lakers will win in foe against the Clippers.
Oh my gosh. Okay. I have the Clippers just because I think it's time for them to get serious. It's Game 7. They're the better team, and I think it's time for them to prove it, and I think they'll show up. Worth pointing out, though, the Nuggets came back from 3-1 last series, and not only did that happen, but the series have gone identically. Like, the Nuggets had loss, win, loss, win, 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 and it's gone identical up to that point. So worth pointing out if you believe in patterns or anything like that. So I'm kind of rooting for that just because that's really cool to see. And also I want a championship. I don't really care how we get there, honestly. Like 17th banner is a 17th banner,
You're 17th banner? It's like almost meant to be.
You're 17.
LeBron.
Yeah.
Daniel?
I have the Clippers. I feel like kind of what I think as Andrew said it, they're the better team. I feel like they were playing with their food for a little bit, and now they need to just take control. They're better. They have Kawhi Leonard, who's better than any player on the Nuggets right now. I feel like he's going to have probably 35 shot attempts in Game 7. He's not going to let this Clippers team lose to the Nuggets. So I think that the Clippers are going to win pretty easily, to be honest with you. But it'd be pretty cool to see the Nuggets make the conference finals. And a little fun stat, the last 4 Nuggets series they've played have all gone to Game 7.
I was just going to mention that right out if you didn't mention it. Yeah, I saw that today.
It's really tough being a Nuggets fan if there is such thing as a Nuggets fan out there. So I want to thank all of you, most of you, for coming out and asking some good questions. We will be back Thursday to discuss the Western Conference Finals, if it's either the Lakers versus the Clippers or Lakers versus Nuggets. If you're not already, subscribe to this channel, like the video, and please follow our podcast on Spotify, Ball Around the Head. Thank you for watching.
Lakers in 4!